The sky above New York tore open like a wound. It happened at 11:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, the kind of mundane autumn morning where Wall Street traders grabbed overpriced lattes and tourists snapped selfies in front of Stark Tower. Then reality screamed. The air split with a sound like 1,000 thunderclaps compressed into one unholy note, and a rift of burning blue light carved itself across the heavens. Glass shattered in a 6-block radius. Car alarms shrieked in unison. Pigeons dropped from the sky, wings singed by dimensional radiation. And through that rift, through a tear between worlds that smelled of ozone and ash and something worse, something like despair, a figure fell. He didn't descend. He plummeted, a red and blue comet trailing smoke and debris, crashing into the intersection of 5th Avenue and East 42nd Street with enough force to crater the asphalt and flip a city bus onto its side. The shockwave knocked pedestrians off their feet. Steam hissed from ruptured water mains. Somewhere, a child was crying. In the center of the crater, unmoving, lay a man in a black suit with a silver S-shield emblazoned across his chest. His cape was torn, his knuckles were bloody, and his eyes, when they finally opened, were the pale blue of a winter sky drained of warmth. He whispered one word, broken and desperate. Lois. Avengers Tower, 3.2 miles north, 11:51 am. Jarvis, tell me that wasn't what I think it was. Tony Stark stood in the middle of his workshop, holographic displays flickering around him like ghosts. He'd been elbow-deep in a new arc reactor prototype when every sensor in the building lit up red. Seismic activity, atmospheric distortion, and something else. An energy signature that didn't match anything in Earth's known catalog. "I'm afraid I cannot, sir," Jarvis replied, his British accent maddeningly calm. "The event registers as a dimensional breach, origin unknown, threat level calculating, Theta-class entity detected at ground zero." Tony's jaw tightened. Theta-class. That was the classification reserved for Hulk on a bad day, or Thor when he stopped holding back. "Get me a visual." The hologram shifted. Satellite footage zoomed in on the crater. The figure was standing now, rising from the wreckage with an ease that made Tony's stomach drop. No stagger, no disorientation, just a man. No, not a man, surveying the chaos around him with the detached calm of someone who'd seen civilization burn. "Cap, you seeing this?" Tony tapped his earpiece. Steve Rogers' voice crackled through, steady as always. "Already en route. Tony, that suit, it's not Chitauri, not Kree. What we dealing with?" "I don't know, but he just walked through a dimensional rift like it was a revolving door, so I'm gonna go with bad news." "Avengers assemble," Steve said simply. Tony was already suiting up. Ground zero, 11:54 a.m. Superman stood in the ruins, his senses adjusting to this new world. The sounds hit him first. Too many voices, too much fear, a cacophony of heartbeats and sirens and screaming metal. His vision sharpened, and he could see everything. The EMTs rushing toward the overturned bus, the NYPD setting up a perimeter, the woman with the camera phone filming him from behind a taxi, her hands shaking. And beyond all of that, threading through the noise like a familiar melody, he heard her, a heartbeat he'd know across universes. "Lois," he breathed again, louder this time. Hope and agony tangled in his chest. He took a step forward and the ground cracked beneath his boot. "Freeze! NYPD! Hands where I can see them!" 6 officers, guns drawn, forming a semicircle. Superman didn't even look at them. His X-ray vision was already scanning the city, searching for that heartbeat, that one specific rhythm that meant everything. I said freeze. A warning shot. The bullet sparked off Superman's shoulder, flattening against invulnerable skin. He turned slowly, and the officers flinched. There was something wrong with his eyes, not the color, but the emptiness behind them, like staring into a frozen lake and seeing something dark moving beneath the ice. "I'm not your enemy," Superman said quietly. His voice was raw, scraped hollow by grief. "I'm looking for someone, a woman, dark hair, reporter. Her name is Lois Lane." One of the officers, a rookie barely out of the academy, lowered his weapon slightly. "Sir, we need you to come with us. You're under arrest for—" "I don't have time for this." Superman moved. He didn't fly, not yet. He simply accelerated, crossing the distance between them faster than human eyes could track. The officers saw a blur, felt a gust of wind, and when their vision cleared, the man in the black suit was gone. All that remained was a sonic boom echoing off skyscrapers and the smell of scorched concrete. Somewhere above Manhattan, 11:56 a.m. He flew now, rising above the city in a controlled descent that sent shockwaves rippling through the air. Cars rocked on the streets below, windows rattled, and Superman, Kal-El, the regime's architect, the tyrant who'd made a world kneel, searched desperately for the one thing that might make him whole again. There. Her heartbeat, stronger now, closer. In a building 12 blocks east, a news station, his vision confirmed, seeing through steel and concrete like tissue paper. He saw her at her desk, typing furiously, coffee going cold beside her keyboard. Same dark hair, same sharp jawline, same fire in her eyes that he'd loved and lost and destroyed. "Lois," he whispered, and this time it wasn't a question, it was a prayer. He angled downward, preparing to land, and a red, white, and blue shield slammed into his face. The impact would have decapitated a normal man. For Superman, it was barely a sting, but the surprise of it, the sheer audacity, made him halt mid-flight. The shield ricocheted off his jaw, spinning through the air in a perfect arc, before returning to the hand of a man standing on a nearby rooftop. Steve Rogers, Captain America, caught the shield one-handed and locked eyes with the figure hovering 30 feet above him. "I don't know who you are," Steve called out, his voice carrying the weight of a man who'd faced down gods and lived. "But you just caused a lot of damage and scared a lot of people. So here's how this goes. You land, we talk, and nobody else gets hurt." Superman stared at him, at the stars and stripes, the righteous posture, the absurd belief that a man with a shield could dictate terms to a god. For a moment, just a heartbeat, Superman saw another face. Bruce. Batman. His oldest friend turned greatest enemy, always thinking he could control the uncontrollable. The memory made his jaw tighten. "I'm not here to fight you," Superman said, each word clipped. "Move aside." "Can't do that." "You don't understand. She's here. I can save her this time. I can—" "Save who?" Another voice, this one coming from above. Superman's head snapped up. Iron Man descended in a controlled hover, repulsors glowing blue-white. "Because from where I'm standing, you just totaled half a city block, and now you're stalking someone. That's serial killer behavior, buddy. We've got a protocol for that." Behind Steve, more figures emerged. a massive green form cresting a building, Hulk growling low and dangerous. A flash of red energy coalescing into Scarlet Witch, her hands glowing with chaos magic. And descending from the clouds on a column of lightning, Thor Odinson, Mjolnir crackling with barely restrained power. Earth's mightiest heroes assembled. Tony's HUD was going haywire, scanning the figure in black. "Jarvis, what am I looking at?" "Unknown, sir. His cellular structure is inconsistent with terrestrial biology. Readings suggest extreme durability, flight capability, and energy output comparable to what?" "To a star, sir." Tony's blood went cold. Superman looked at each of them in turn. Warriors, protectors, obstacles. In another life, he might have admired them. In another universe, he might have called them friends. But in this moment, with Lois Lane's heartbeat still thrumming in his ears and the ache of loss burning in his chest like kryptonite, he had no patience for heroes. "Last warning," he said softly. "Move." Steve Rogers planted his feet and raised his shield. "We don't move." The air between them crackled with tension. Civilians were scrambling below, clearing the streets. SHIELD agents were already en route, 8 minutes out. Dr. Strange was being contacted in the Sanctum Sanctorum. The world was holding its breath. And Superman, the Man of Steel, the regime's architect, the broken god who'd strangled tyranny from a universe and still lost everything, made his choice. His eyes began to glow red, then burn. The heat vision came like hellfire, twin beams of concentrated solar energy, hot enough to vaporize titanium. Steve threw up his shield on instinct, and the vibranium held, absorbing the impact and dispersing the heat in a shower of sparks. But the force of it drove Steve back 10 feet, boots scraping across concrete. "That's it," Tony snarled. "Full weapons hot. Take him down." The Battle of Manhattan had begun. And somewhere in a newsroom 12 blocks away, Lois Lane looked up from her computer, hearing thunder that had nothing to do with the weather, and wondered why her heart was suddenly racing. If you love cinematic crossovers where gods bleed and heroes never surrender, smash that subscribe button and drop your dream matchup in the comments. Injustice Batman in the MCU. Thanos in the DC Universe. We're building the multiverse one epic at a time. Now let's see if Earth's mightiest can cage a tyrant who's already lost everything. Iron Man fired first. Repulsor beams lanced through the air, converging on Superman's chest with enough energy to punch through a tank. The impact lit up the rooftop like a miniature sun, and Superman didn't move. The beams washed over him, dissipating against his suit like water off stone. Tony's HUD screamed warnings he didn't want to believe. "Okay, that's not good," he muttered, banking hard as Superman's gaze tracked him. Those red eyes flared again, and Tony juked left, the heat vision carving a molten line through the air where he'd been a microsecond before. The beam kept going, slicing clean through a water tower 3 blocks away. Steam exploded into the sky. "Thor, a little help here," thunder answered. Thor descended like a meteor, Mjolnir leading, the hammer trailing lightning as it crashed into Superman's jaw with the force of a collapsing star. The shockwave shattered every window in a 2-block radius. Superman's head snapped to the side and then slowly, deliberately, turned back. Blood trickled from his lip. He wiped it away with the back of his hand, staring at the red smear like he'd forgotten what pain felt like. "Thou art strong," Thor said, hefting his hammer. "But strength without honor is mere brutality. Stand down, warrior, and Superman hit him so fast Thor didn't see it coming. One moment the god of thunder was mid-speech. The next he was a red-gold blur hurtling through the skyline, crashing through the side of a parking garage in a shower of concrete and rebar. The structure groaned, threatening collapse. Steve's voice cut through the chaos, calm and commanding. "Wanda, crowd control. Make sure that building doesn't come down. Tony, keep him busy. I'm going in." "Cap, that's suicide." "It's the job." Steve ran, shield raised, boots pounding rooftop gravel. Superman turned toward him, and there was something almost pitying in his gaze. This man with his antiquated weapon and his outdated ideals, charging a god. It was noble. It was foolish. It reminded Superman too much of the heroes he'd buried. Captain America leaped, shield arcing toward Superman's temple. The Man of Steel caught it one-handed. The impact should have shattered bones. The shield was vibranium, absorbing and redirecting kinetic energy. But Superman held it effortlessly, his grip like a vice on reality itself. "I respect what you're trying to do," Superman said quietly. "But I fought better." He yanked the shield, pulling Steve off balance, and drove a fist into the soldier's ribs. Steve felt something crack, pain exploding through his torso as he flew backward, hitting an air conditioning unit hard enough to dent the metal. His vision swam, blood filled his mouth, but he forced himself up because that's what Captain America did. He got up. "You hit like a coward," Steve rasped, spitting blood. "A man with your power, and you use it to brutalize." Something flickered in Superman's eyes. Anger, shame, something darker. "You don't know what I've lost." "Then tell me. We can—" The rooftop exploded as Hulk erupted through the surface, green fists swinging with berserker fury. He caught Superman in a double-handed blow that would have leveled a building, driving the Kryptonian down through 3 floors of the structure below. Concrete and steel screamed. Hulk roared, a sound of pure rage and adrenaline, and leaped after him. They crashed into an office space, cubicles disintegrating under the impact. Hulk grabbed Superman by the cape, swinging him like a rag doll into a support column. The building shuddered. Superman's expression barely changed. He planted his feet, grabbed Hulk by the wrists, and squeezed. The Jade Giant howled. Superman's grip was unyielding, crushing down on green flesh that could withstand artillery fire. Hulk headbutted him once, twice, 3 times, each impact like a cannon shot. Superman's nose broke with a wet crack. Blood ran down his face, stark against pale skin. And he smiled. A cold, broken thing. "Finally," Superman whispered. "Someone who can take it." He lifted Hulk, all 1,500 pounds of gamma-irradiated muscle, and flew straight up through the ceiling, through the next floor, through the roof, carrying the Hulk into the sky like a green comet. They rose past the clouds, past the limits of breathable air, and Superman stopped. Hulk thrashed, oxygen thinning, survival instincts overriding rage. "This isn't your fight," Superman said, his voice barely audible in the stratosphere. "Stay down." He threw Hulk toward the horizon. The Jade Giant became a green dot, arcing over the Hudson River, impacting somewhere in New Jersey with a distant boom. Superman hovered there for a moment, chest heaving, blood dripping from his broken nose into the clouds below. Lois. He had to find Lois. Everything else was noise. He descended, faster now, a black-clad angel falling back to earth. But as he dropped below cloud cover, crimson energy wrapped around him like chains. Scarlet Witch floated in his path, eyes glowing red, hands weaving patterns in the air that made reality bend. "I've seen your mind," Wanda said, her accent thick with strain. "You're drowning in grief. Let me help you." Superman struggled against the chaos magic, his invulnerability meaningless against forces that altered probability itself. The red chains tightened, and for a moment, just a heartbeat, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Fear. "Get out of my head," he snarled. Wanda's eyes widened as she touched his thoughts. She saw a woman in a red dress, a bomb, a city in flames, a man in black kneeling over a body and screaming at the heavens. She saw a world that knelt or died. She saw the regime. The executions, the absolute certainty that only through control could chaos be prevented. And she saw that this broken god truly believed he was saving people. "You're not a villain," she whispered. "You're a tragedy." Superman's eyes blazed. "I said get out!" The psychic feedback hit Wanda like a freight train. She gasped, blood streaming from her nose, the chaos magic dissolving. She fell, and Tony caught her mid-descent, Repulsor screaming as he arrested her fall. "Wanda, what did you see?" She looked up at Superman, hovering above them, silhouetted against the sun like a dark messiah. "A man," she whispered, "who's already lost everything, which means he has nothing left to lose." Superman's gaze swept across them. The broken soldier, the overwhelmed inventor, the witch who'd touched his mind. They were trying. They were brave. They had no idea what true power looked like. He spoke, and his voice carried across the city, amplified by super breath and will. "I didn't come here to conquer. I came to find someone. Give me Lois Lane, and I'll leave peacefully." Tony's blood ran cold. "Jarvis, locate Lois Lane, now." "Daily Bugle offices, sir. Shall I?" "Lock it down. Full shield protocol. Nobody gets in or out." Superman heard every word through the comm system. His jaw tightened. "You're making a mistake." Steve pulled himself up, ribs screaming. "The only mistake is thinking we'll hand over an innocent woman to someone who just put my teammate in orbit." Thor emerged from the rubble, lightning crackling across his armor, Mjolnir humming with lethal intent. We stand together, and we stand between thee and thy madness." Superman looked at them all. Broken but unbowed, outmatched but defiant. Heroes, just like he used to be. The realization hurt worse than any punch. "Then you've chosen war." The Daily Bugle building locked down in 47 seconds. Steel shutters slammed over windows, electromagnetic barriers hummed to life, and shield agents in tactical gear poured through the lobby like a black-clad tide. Lois Lane looked up from her desk as armed men surrounded her, their faces hidden behind visors, weapons trained on the ceiling as if expecting God himself to tear through. "Ma'am, we need you to come with us," the lead agent said, his voice clipped and professional. "You're in danger." Lois stood slowly, hands visible, journalist instincts overriding fear. "What kind of danger? And who authorized a military occupation of a news building? I want names, badge numbers, and—" The ceiling exploded. Rebar and concrete rained down as Superman descended through the hole like a falling star, landing in the center of the newsroom with enough force to crack the floor tiles. The shield agents opened fire instantly, a symphony of automatic weapons that lit up the room with muzzle flashes. Bullets sparked off Superman's chest, his face, his eyes, flattening against invulnerable skin before clattering to the floor in smoking heaps. He didn't even blink. His gaze locked on Lois Lane, and everything else ceased to exist. The gunfire, the screaming, the world. All of it faded to static as he looked at her face. That face, the one he'd failed to save, failed to protect, failed to... "Lois," he breathed, and his voice cracked with a vulnerability that made her stomach twist. "You're alive." She stared at this man in black, this stranger with her dead fiancé's face, wearing an expression she'd never seen on Clark Kent. Desperation. Obsession. Something feral and broken that made her skin crawl. "I don't know you," Lois said carefully, backing toward the wall. "But you need to leave, now." Superman moved forward, agent scrambling out of his path. "It's me. It's Cal. I know you don't understand. I know this seems impossible, but I found you. Across universes, across death itself, I found you." His hand reached out, trembling. "We can start over. I can protect you this time. I won't fail again." Lois's hand found the desk behind her, fingers wrapping around a letter opener. Useless against a god, but it was something. "I said stay back. Lois, please." Iron Man crashed through the window in a shower of glass, repulsors blazing. The twin beams caught Superman in the side of the head, staggering him, and Tony positioned himself between the Kryptonian and the reporter. "Lady says back off, Stalker McFly boy. We clear." Superman's eyes narrowed. "You're protecting her from me, from the one person in this universe who would die for her. Yeah, see, that's exactly the kind of thing that gets you a restraining order." Tony's Huddy was cycling through weapon systems, none of them rated for whatever this guy was. "Here's the deal. You leave now. We talk this out like adults. Maybe get you some therapy and a nice cell with a view. Or we do this the hard way." Superman's heat vision ignited. Tony's armor absorbed the first blast, distributed the thermal energy through nanotech heat sinks, but the second beam burned through the left shoulder plate like paper. Molten metal dripped to the floor. Alarms screamed in Tony's helmet. "Hard way it is," Tony grunted, firing everything. Micro-missiles, lasers, sonic disruptors, the experimental stuff he'd been saving for Thanos. The barrage hit Superman like a tsunami of fire and fury, and the Man of Steel walked through it, each step deliberate, unstoppable, a god bored with mortal defiance. He grabbed Tony by the faceplate, lifted him, and threw him through 3 interior walls. The armor's inertial dampeners saved Tony's life, barely. He landed in the marketing department, servos screaming, consciousness graying at the edges. Superman turned back to Lois. "I'm sorry. I didn't want it to be like this." "Target acquired," a voice crackled through the building's PA system. "Firing solution locked." The wall exploded as a helicarrier's railgun opened fire from 2 miles out. The tungsten slug hit Superman at Mach 7, a kinetic strike designed to crack bunkers. It caught him square in the chest, drove him backward through the building's far wall, and carried him 6 blocks before he arrested his momentum, boots carving trenches through asphalt as he slid to a halt. He looked down at his chest. The suit was scorched, his skin beneath was unmarked. He looked up at the helicarrier hovering in the distance, guns tracking, and felt something cold settle in his gut. They were escalating. These people, these heroes, they were choosing war over reason, just like Bruce had, just like the League, just like everyone who'd stood between him and peace. His jaw tightened. Fine. If they wanted to prove they could stand against a god, He'd show them what divine wrath looked like. Superman rocketed skyward, a black blur against gray clouds, and the helicarrier's point defense systems lit up like fireworks. Gatling cannons spun up, firing thousands of rounds per second. Missiles streaked toward him, contrails crisscrossing the sky. Superman flew through it all, heat vision carving through missile clusters, fists smashing cannon emplacements like tin cans. He landed on the flight deck, boots denting reinforced steel, and grabbed the edge of the carrier. His fingers sank into metal, his muscles tensed, and he began to tilt the ship. 15,000 tons of shield technology and personnel groaned as Superman, alone, started to flip an airborne aircraft carrier. Inside, agents tumbled, equipment crashed, alarm klaxons wailed. The engine screamed, trying to compensate, but physics was surrendering to something beyond physics. All hands, abandon ship. Director Hill's voice echoed through the intercoms. Repeat. Abandon. Thor hit Superman like a meteor. Mjolnir first, driving him off the carrier and into the East River below. The impact crater sent up a geyser visible from Brooklyn. The helicarrier stabilized, engines roaring, limping away to safety. Beneath the water, in the churning darkness, two gods faced each other. Lightning arced through the river, illuminating Superman's face, and Thor saw something in those eyes that chilled even an Asgardian's blood. Not malice, not evil. Something worse. Certainty. The absolute conviction that he was right, that he alone understood what needed to be done, that anyone standing in his way was simply wrong. Thor had seen that look before. On Hela, on Thanos, on every tyrant who'd ever draped slaughter in the cloak of necessity. They exploded from the river together, locked in combat, rising into the sky on pillars of displaced water. Thor's hammer met Superman's fist with a thunderclap that rattled windows in Queens. They traded blows faster than mortal eyes could track, each impact a seismic event, two immortals trying to prove which god bled. And in the Daily Bugle building, Lois Lane stood amid the wreckage, watching through the shattered wall as a man wearing the face of someone she'd never met fought to reach her. She pulled out her phone, opened a recording app, and started documenting everything. Because whatever this was, whatever insanity had just crashed into her world, someone needed to tell the truth about it. That's what reporters did. Even when gods went to war, Thor's hammer connected with Superman's ribs, the impact echoing across Manhattan like a church bell forged in hell. Superman twisted midair, catching Mjolnir on the backswing, his fingers wrapping around leather and enchanted metal. Thor's eyes widened. Impossible, the Asgardian breathed. Superman ripped the hammer from Thor's grip and hurled it toward the horizon. Mjolnir became a spinning dot, disappearing over the Atlantic in seconds. Thor summoned lightning with his bare hands, channeling the storm itself, and Superman flew straight into it. The electricity washed over him, absorbed by cells that drank solar radiation like wine. I've fought gods before, Superman said coldly. They all fell. He drove his fist into Thor's stomach, folding the god of thunder in half, then grabbed him by the cape and flew downward. They hit the street doing Mach 2, the asphalt crater spreading like a spider web. Thor coughed blood, vision swimming, and Superman stood over him. Stay down. But Thor Odinson, son of Odin, prince of Asgard, did not stay down. He rose on shaking legs, lightning crackling weakly around his fists, and smiled through broken teeth. Not today, monster. Mjolnir screamed back across the sky, pulled by worthiness and will, slamming into Superman's spine hard enough to crack bone. Superman stumbled, and Thor caught his hammer, spinning with momentum, bringing it around in an overhead strike that drove Superman 6 feet into the pavement. The street buckled. Water mains burst, and Superman rose from the crater, slower this time, blood running from his temple. "You're brave," Superman admitted. "But bravery doesn't stop me." His heat vision lanced out, and Thor raised Mjolnir. The beams struck the hammer and scattered, reflected skyward in a shower of ruby light. But the heat was intense, unbearable, and Thor felt the leather grip jarring beneath his fingers. Captain America's shield hit Superman in the back of the head. The throw was perfect, the angle calculated, and Steve Rogers was already running, grabbing the rebounding shield and sliding beneath Superman's retaliatory swing. He came up inside the Kryptonian's guard, shield edge driving toward the throat. Superman caught the shield, caught Steve's arm, and for a moment they stood frozen, strength against strength. "You don't quit," Superman said, almost respectful. "Never learned how," Steve grunted, muscles screaming. Superman twisted, leveraging Steve's momentum, and threw him into Thor. The two Avengers crashed together in a tangle of limbs and metal. Before they could recover, Superman was airborne again, rocketing back toward the Daily Bugle, toward Lois, toward the one thing in this godforsaken universe that mattered. But the sky itself turned crimson. Doctor Strange materialized in his path, the cloak of levitation billowing, hands weaving patterns that made reality fold. Mystic chains erupted from nowhere, wrapping around Superman's arms, his legs, his throat, each link inscribed with Sanskrit that glowed like dying stars. "You are far from home, Kryptonian," Strange said, his voice resonant with power borrowed from dimensions beyond mortal ken. "And you bring chaos to a world that has seen enough." Superman strained against the chains. They held magic where metal had failed, and for the first time since arriving, he felt genuine resistance. "Let me go," Superman warned, his voice low and dangerous. "I cannot. The woman you seek is not yours to claim. Whatever you lost, whoever you mourn, she is not the answer." Strange saw into him then, the eye of Agamotto opening, perceiving the tangled threads of Superman's timeline. A wedding ring in a lead box, a city irradiated and empty, a man in a bat cowl bleeding on marble floors, a regime built on bones and good intentions, and beneath it all, a scream that never ended, a grief so profound it had literally torn reality apart. "I see your pain," Strange said quietly. "But pain does not grant you dominion over others." Superman's eyes ignited. The heat vision came not as beams, but as an explosion, raw solar fury erupting in all directions. The mystic chains shattered, Strange's shields cracked, and the Sorcerer Supreme was blown backward, tumbling through the air before the cloak arrested his fall. "You see nothing," Superman snarled. "You don't know what I've sacrificed, what I've become to keep my world safe." "Your world," Strange countered, hands already weaving new spells, "is not this one. Here, we choose freedom over security, chaos over tyranny, even if it costs us everything." "Then you'll lose everything." Superman blitzed him, closing the distance in a microsecond, fist drawn back to end this. But Strange folded space, and Superman's punch hit empty air. The sorcerer reappeared behind him, the crimson bands of Sitarak wrapping around Superman like a boa constrictor made of concentrated magic. "You cannot punch your way through the mystic arts," Strange said, pulling the bands tighter. Superman struggled, raw power against arcane law, and for a moment the bands held. Then his eyes began to glow, not with heat vision, but with something deeper. Kryptonian biology pushed beyond limits, cells igniting with stored solar energy, and he roared. The crimson bands snapped. Strange's eyes widened in disbelief. That was impossible. Sitarak's magic had bound demon lords, elder gods, cosmic abstracts, and this man just broke them through sheer force of will. Superman grabbed Strange by the throat, lifting him, their faces inches apart. "Where is she?" Strange met his gaze, unflinching. "Even if I told you, she would never love a tyrant." The words hit harder than any weapon. Superman's grip loosened, something flickering in his eyes, doubt, shame, recognition. And in that moment of hesitation, the Hulk returned. A green meteor from New Jersey, still pissed, landing on Superman's back with enough force to crater the intersection. They went down together, a tangle of fists and fury, and the street couldn't take it. Asphalt gave way to subway tunnels, and they crashed into the darkness below, their battle moving underground. The subway tunnel shook as titans collided in the dark. Emergency lights flickered, casting everything in hellish red as Superman and Hulk grappled on the tracks, their struggles shaking foundations that had stood for a century. A train screeched to a halt 300 yards away, passengers screaming as the tunnel itself seemed to come alive with violence. Hulk's fist caught Superman's jaw, snapping his head sideways. Superman retaliated with an uppercut that lifted the Jade Giant off his feet, slamming him into the tunnel ceiling. Concrete rained down. Support beams groaned. Somewhere above, the street was collapsing, cars sliding into sinkholes, water mains bursting in geysers that flooded the tunnels. "Hulk smash angry man," the Green Giant roared, grabbing Superman by the cape and swinging him like a club into the steel support columns. Metal shrieked. The tunnel threatened total collapse. Superman caught himself mid-swing, planting his feet, and drove both fists into Hulk's chest. The shockwave knocked the wind from the monster's lungs, and Superman followed up with heat vision, twin beams searing across green flesh. Hulk howled, more in rage than pain, and charged like a bull. They crashed through the tunnel wall into an adjoining line, then through another wall into the old abandoned station beneath City Hall. Victorian-era tile work shattered as they tumbled across the platform, trading blows that would level buildings. Hulk was getting stronger, rage feeding rage, gamma radiation spiking with every hit he took. But Superman wasn't slowing down. If anything, he was fighting smarter now, conserving energy, targeting joints and nerve clusters with surgical precision. This wasn't brutality. This was something worse, calculated dominance. He caught Hulk's fist mid-swing, twisted, and drove his knee into the giant's elbow. The joint hyperextended with a sickening crack. Hulk screamed, and Superman swept his legs, bringing the behemoth down. Before Hulk could recover, Superman was on top of him, one hand pinning the monster's throat, the other drawn back in a fist that hummed with terrible potential. "I don't want to kill you," Superman said, breathing hard, blood dripping from his split lip. "But I will if you don't stop." Hulk's eyes met his, and beneath the rage, beneath the gamma-fueled fury, there was something else. recognition. This man meant it. This man had killed before. And he'd do it again without hesitation. The Hulk hesitated, and in that hesitation, Bruce Banner's voice echoed somewhere deep. "Stop. Please." The green began to fade, muscles deflated. Gamma radiation receded, and within seconds, where the Hulk had been, Bruce Banner lay in tattered clothes, gasping, staring up at the Kryptonian with exhausted eyes. "Please," Bruce whispered, "whoever you're looking for, this isn't the way." Superman's fist remained cocked, trembling. He looked at this broken man, this scientist who shared a body with a monster, and saw a mirror he didn't want to acknowledge. How many times had he stood over a defeated enemy? How many times had he justified violence with necessity? He lowered his fist, stood, backed away. "I'm sorry," Superman said, and he sounded like he meant it. Then he flew upward, punching through tunnel ceilings, through subway platforms, through the street, emerging in downtown Manhattan like a dark angel ascending from hell. The Avengers were regrouping 3 blocks away. He could hear their voices, their plans, their desperate strategizing, but between him and them, standing alone on a rooftop with arms crossed and an expression of weary disappointment, was someone new. Nick Fury, eye patch, leather coat, the kind of presence that made even gods reconsider. "Son," Fury called out, voice carrying across the distance, "you've had a hell of a day, crashed through dimensions, fought Earth's mightiest, tore up half of Manhattan, all for a woman who doesn't know you exist." He paused. "That sound healthy to you?" Superman hovered, suspended between earth and sky, and something about Fury's tone made him pause. Not fear, not intimidation, just honesty, the kind that cut through delusion like a knife. "You don't understand," Superman said. "I understand plenty. You lost someone, it broke you, and now you're looking for a replacement, a second chance, a do-over in another universe." Fury shook his head. "But that woman in the Daily Bugle? She's not your Lois Lane. She's our Lois Lane. Different choices, different life, different love. You can't resurrect the dead by stalking the living. I can protect her." "From what?" "You?" Fury's voice hardened. "Because right now, you're the biggest threat she's facing. You've endangered her workplace, terrified her colleagues, and declared war on an entire world just to get close to her. That's not love, son. That's obsession, and it needs to stop." Superman's fists clenched. "I didn't come here to hurt anyone." "But you did. 37 injured in your initial landing. 14 SHIELD agents hospitalized. A helicarrier nearly crashed. Bruce Banner traumatized." Fury counted on his fingers. "And for what? A woman who owes you nothing." The words landed like punches. Superman's vision blurred, not from damage, but from something worse. Clarity. He looked down at his hands, still stained with Bruce Banner's blood, and saw them for what they were. Not the hands of a hero. The hands of a tyrant who'd convinced himself tyranny was mercy. "I just wanted to save her," Superman whispered. "Then let her go," Fury said simply. "That's how you save her, by walking away." For a long moment, Superman hung in the air, motionless. The sounds of the city washed over him, sirens, voices, heartbeats, and among them, that one familiar rhythm. Lois Lane's heart, still beating, still alive, still free. In his universe, he'd held her broken body and screamed at a god who didn't answer. He'd burned the world to ashes, trying to prevent more loss. He'd become the monster Bruce Wayne always warned him about. And here, in this new world, he was doing it again. "I can't," Superman said, and his voice cracked. "I can't lose her again." "You never had her to lose," Fury replied. "Not this one." Superman's eyes began to glow red, desperation replacing reason. "Then I'll make her remember. I'll make this world understand." The sky turned gold. Every light in Manhattan blazed simultaneously, powered by something impossible. And from the atmosphere itself, a voice boomed with the weight of cosmic authority. "Enough." Captain Marvel descended through the clouds like a comet wrapped in golden fire, her binary form blazing with the power of a white hole compressed into human shape. Carol Danvers had been off-world, responding to a Kree distress signal near the Andromeda Gateway when S.H.I.E.L.D.'s emergency broadcast reached her. Theta-level threat, Manhattan under siege, all Avengers overwhelmed. She'd crossed 3 star systems in 20 minutes. Now she hovered between Superman and Fury, energy crackling around her fists, eyes glowing with photonic fury that could crack moons. She'd fought Thanos. She'd punched through Kree warships. She'd stared down cosmic abstracts and refused to blink. But looking at this man in black, feeling the sheer density of power radiating from him like heat from a dying star, Carol felt something she rarely experienced: uncertainty. "You're strong," Superman said, studying her with X-ray vision that made Carol's skin crawl. "But strength won't be enough." "Try me." They moved simultaneously. Carol's photon blast met Superman's heat vision in a collision that vaporized the air between them, the shockwave shattering windows for 12 blocks. They closed distance, fists meeting in a thunderclap that sent ripples through the atmosphere visible from space. Carol had fought with the force of collapsing stars. Superman had held black holes. And for the first time in both their lives, they'd found someone who could match them. They tore across the sky, trading blows faster than sound, each impact leaving sonic booms like breadcrumbs. Carol grabbed Superman's wrist, channeled photonic energy directly into his nervous system, a technique that had dropped Ronan the Accuser in seconds. Superman gritted his teeth, tanked the pain, and head-butted her so hard, saw the Big Bang. She flew backward, stunned, and Superman pressed the advantage. But Carol had been holding back, testing him, learning his patterns. Now she stopped holding back. Binary mode surged to full power, and she became living light, intangible, untouchable, reforming behind him and driving both fists into his kidneys with enough force to shatter continental shelves. Superman coughed blood. Actual blood. Carol's eyes widened. "You can bleed," she said. "Everyone bleeds," Superman replied, wiping his mouth. "The question is whether you can make me bleed enough." They clashed again. Carol's energy absorption versus Superman's solar battery, 2 walking violations of thermodynamics trying to prove which impossibility was more impossible. They fought across the Hudson, over Jersey City, above the Statue of Liberty where their battle illuminated Lady Liberty's face in strobing gold and red. But Superman was adapting, learning. He'd fought Kryptonians, Daxamites, new gods. He knew how energy manipulators thought, how they moved. When Carol phased to avoid his heat vision, he was already tracking her trajectory, reforming point, catching her wrist as she solidified, and squeezing. Carol felt bones grind. She blasted him point blank with photonic fire hot enough to ignite atmospheres. Superman's suit charred, His skin blistered, and he didn't let go. "You're protecting a world you barely visit," Superman said, his grip tightening. "I'm fighting for the only thing I have left. Who do you think wants it more?" Carol kneed him in the ribs, broke his grip, and flew straight up. Superman followed, and they rose beyond the troposphere, beyond breathable air, into the cold darkness where stars burned without mercy. Carol pulled energy from the cosmic microwave background, from solar radiation, from the quantum foam of reality itself, building toward a blast that could sterilize planets. Superman saw it coming, recognized the energy signature. Supernova-level output compressed into a human-sized package. He'd seen it before. Kara had done something similar against Darkseid. It had vaporized half of Apocalypse. "Don't," he warned. Carol unleashed everything, a column of golden fire that made the sun look dim, that turned night to day across 3 states, that should have reduced Superman to component atoms. When the light faded, Superman was still there. Suit destroyed, skin scorched, cape disintegrated. But standing, floating, alive. "Impossible," Carol breathed, energy reserves depleted. Superman's eyes glowed red, weaker now, but still deadly. "I've walked through exploding stars. I've bathed in solar cores. Your best wasn't enough." He moved to strike, and a rainbow bridge of light materialized between them. Thor stepped through the Bifrost, battered but unbowed, Mjolnir crackling with renewed fury. Behind him came Steve Rogers, Tony Stark in a fresh suit, Wanda Maximoff with chaos magic swirling around trembling fingers. "We stand together," Thor declared, "as one." Superman looked at them all, beaten, exhausted, refusing to quit, and something in his chest tightened. They reminded him of the League, before the schism, before the regime, when they'd actually believed in each other. "I don't want to kill you," Superman said, and meant it. "Then surrender," Steve replied simply. "Come peacefully. We'll talk. We'll find a solution that doesn't end with blood." For a moment, hovering in the thin air between Earth and Void, Superman considered it. Surrender. Peace. An end to fighting. But then he thought of Lois, still alive somewhere below, still breathing, still savable. "I can't," he whispered, and Nick Fury's voice crackled through every Avengers comm simultaneously. "Plan Omega is go. Strange now." Reality folded. The mirror dimension erupted around Superman like a kaleidoscope made of broken glass and recursive nightmares. Doctor Strange appeared in 6 places at once, hands weaving spells that made physics weep, trapping the Kryptonian in a prison of infinite reflections. "Welcome," Strange said, his voice echoing from everywhere and nowhere, "to a place where strength means nothing, where will and magic are the only currency, and where, Superman, you are hopelessly outmatched." The mirror dimension was madness given form. Skyscrapers folded into Escher paintings, streets spiraled into Mobius loops, and gravity became a polite suggestion rather than a law. Superman floated in the center of this kaleidoscope hell, watching 1,000 reflections of himself stare back with hollow eyes. Doctor Strange materialized before him, the cloak of levitation billowing in winds that didn't exist. Around them, the geometry of reality shifted like breathing glass. "Here, your strength is irrelevant," Strange said, his voice resonating from every surface. "Physics bends to will, and my will has been forged across dimensions you cannot fathom." Superman's jaw tightened. Then you've made a mistake trapping yourself in here with me. He moved, closing the distance in a blur, fist drawn back, but Strange gestured, and the space between them stretched into infinity. Superman flew for what felt like miles, punching through layers of reflected reality, each one shattering into prismatic shards, and still Strange remained exactly the same distance away. "You cannot brute force metaphysics," Strange said calmly. Superman stopped, hovering, breathing hard. His heat vision lanced out, twin beams that should have carved through dimensions. The beams hit Strange, passed through him like smoke, and looped back around to strike Superman from behind. He grunted, more from surprise than pain. "Everything you do here feeds back into itself," Strange explained, weaving his hands in complex patterns. "Every attack becomes a trap. Every exertion drains you. This is a realm of pure thought, Superman. And right now, I'm thinking you need to see something." He snapped his fingers. The reflections changed. Instead of Superman's face, they showed other images. A woman in a red dress, laughing at a wedding that never happened. A child with Kryptonian eyes playing in a park. An older Clark Kent, gray at the temples, holding Lois on a porch swing as the sun set over Kansas. Lives he'd never live. Futures he'd burned. "Stop," Superman said quietly. "You need to see what you've lost," Strange continued, his voice softer now. "Not just Lois, but yourself, the man you were, the hero who inspired hope instead of commanding it." The images shifted again. Now they showed the regime. Executions in the streets, heroes kneeling before a throne. A world united under fear, masquerading as peace. And in every scene, Superman's face was cold, detached, convinced of his righteousness. "I did what was necessary," Superman said, but his voice wavered. "You did what was easy." Strange floated closer, the distance between them finally closing. Tyrants always believe their cruelty is kindness, that their control is protection. But look at your reflection, Kal-El. Really look. Is this the man Lois Lane fell in love with? Superman stared at his fractured reflections. 1,000 versions of himself, all wearing the black suit, all bearing the weight of a crown made of bones. None of them smiled. None of them looked free. "She died because I wasn't strong enough," Superman whispered. "She died because villains kill," Strange corrected, "not because heroes fail to become monsters. I could have prevented it, if I'd been faster, stronger, more willing to what? To break every rule. To kill every threat before it manifested? To become the very thing she would have hated?" Strange's eyes blazed with conviction. "You didn't honor her memory by becoming a tyrant. You desecrated it." Superman's fists clenched, trembling. "Then what should I have done?" Grieved, healed, continued being a hero despite the pain. Strange gestured, and the mirror dimension shifted, showing Superman a different reflection. This one showed an older Superman, scarred and weary, but with warmth in his eyes. Standing beside him was Batman, whole and alive, hand on his friend's shoulder. The Justice League, united. "This is what could have been," Strange said. "If you'd chosen differently. If you'd let people help carry the weight instead of crushing the world beneath it." Superman stared at the vision, and something inside him cracked. Not his body. Something deeper. The armor of certainty he'd built around his grief. The absolute conviction that only through control could chaos be prevented. "I can't go back," Superman said, his voice breaking. "I've done too much. Killed too many. Bruce tried to stop me and I..." He couldn't finish the sentence. No, Strange agreed. You cannot go back, but you can choose to stop moving forward down this path. You can choose, right now, to let this world's Lois Lane live her life free from your shadow. Superman's head dropped. I don't know how. Start by surrendering, not to us, to the truth. Strange extended his hand. You are not a god, Kal-El. You are a man with godlike power, and the measure of a man is not his strength, but his restraint. For a long moment, Superman stared at that offered hand. Through the mirror dimension's fractured reality, he could still sense the outside world. The Avengers waiting, S.H.I.E.L.D. mobilizing containment protocols, and Lois Lane, in a safe house somewhere, being briefed on the alien who'd claimed to love a version of her that didn't exist. He thought about reaching for her, about breaking free from this prison, about taking what he wanted because he had the power to take it. Then he thought about the man he used to be, the one who'd catch falling planes and return lost cats, who'd believed in truth, justice, and the simple act of doing right. That man wouldn't have forced love, wouldn't have terrorized a city, wouldn't have become the villain in someone else's story. Superman reached out, his hand trembling, and grasped Strange's. "Help me," he whispered. "Please." The mirror dimension dissolved like morning fog, reality reasserting itself with a shudder that made the Avengers stumble. They stood on the rooftop where this had started, weapons raised, exhausted but ready. Superman materialized at the center of their circle, head bowed, Strange beside him with one hand still glowing with residual magic. "Stand down," Strange said quietly. He surrendered. Tony's faceplate retracted, revealing a face twisted with skepticism. "Surrendered? This guy just fought all of us, nearly killed Bruce, and you want us to believe he's suddenly seen the light?" "I saw what he carries," Strange replied, meeting Tony's gaze. "Grief that would break any of us, and a choice to stop running from it." Steve Rogers approached slowly, shield still raised but lowered slightly. He studied Superman's posture, the slumped shoulders, the trembling fists, the way he wouldn't meet anyone's eyes. Steve had seen this before, in soldiers coming home, in men who'd crossed lines they couldn't uncross. "You said you came here for Lois Lane," Steve said carefully. "That stops now. She's under our protection." Superman nodded, the movement barely perceptible. "I know, I was wrong. She's not mine to save." "Damn right she's not." Tony's repulsors hummed, not threatening but ready. "So what happens now? We just let you walk away? Hope you don't change your mind tomorrow." "No," Superman said, finally raising his head. His eyes were red-rimmed, bloodshot, haunted. "I need containment. Somewhere I can't hurt anyone. Somewhere I can't." He swallowed hard. "Somewhere I can't pretend anymore." Thor stepped forward, Mjolnir crackling softly. "Thou speakest of imprisonment, yet I sense no deception in thy words. Why this sudden change of heart?" "Because Dr. Strange showed me the truth." Superman's voice was hollow. "I'm not a hero. Haven't been for years. I'm a tyrant who convinced himself that control was love, that fear was peace, and I can't be that person anymore." Wanda Maximoff approached, her hands still glowing faintly with chaos magic. She'd touched his mind earlier, felt the depths of his anguish. "You lost someone, but that doesn't give you the right to hurt others." "I know." Superman looked at her directly. "I murdered a clown who killed my wife. Then I killed anyone who opposed the order I built on her grave." I told myself it was justice. It was just revenge wearing a cape. The confession hung in the air like smoke. Carol Danvers landed beside Steve, her binary form dimmed but still crackling with residual energy. You killed. How many? Too many to count. Superman's hands opened and closed, as if still feeling phantom blood. Criminals. Heroes who stood against me. Governments that refused to kneel. I became the thing I swore to fight, and I did it all believing I was saving the world. Nick Fury emerged from the rooftop stairwell, somehow having climbed 40 floors without breaking a sweat. Well, that's quite the resume. And now you want us to lock you up. That about cover it. I want you to make sure I never hurt anyone again. Fury studied him for a long moment. We don't have a prison that can hold you. Nothing on Earth can contain someone with your power level. Then send me somewhere else. Superman's voice was steady now, resolved. Another dimension, the negative zone, anywhere I can't be a threat. Strange spoke up, his tone measured. The negative zone is harsh. No powers, no sunlight, essentially sensory deprivation with occasional hostile entities. You'd be powerless and alone. Good, Superman said simply. That's what I deserve. Steve exchanged looks with Tony, with Thor, with the others. This was unprecedented territory. An enemy who'd fought them to a standstill, now asking to be imprisoned. It could be a trick, could be manipulation. But Steve Rogers had spent a lifetime reading people, and what he saw in Superman's eyes wasn't deception. It was exhaustion. The kind that came from carrying weight too heavy for too long. We need to discuss this, Steve said, as a team. Strange. Can you hold him? I can maintain a containment field. He won't be going anywhere. Golden bands of light wrapped around Superman, not tight, but present. He didn't struggle, didn't resist, just stood there like a statue waiting to be toppled. The Avengers moved to the far side of the roof, voices low but urgent. Superman could hear every word with his super hearing, but he didn't listen. Instead, he looked out over Manhattan at the damage he'd caused. Craters and streets, buildings with holes punched through them, the helicarrier limping away, trailing smoke. And somewhere in this city, Lois Lane was alive, breathing, free. Not his Lois, just a woman who shared a name and a face with someone he'd failed. I'm sorry, he whispered to the wind. I'm so sorry. The Avengers returned. Steve spoke for them all. We've decided, the negative zone. But understand, this isn't mercy, this is containment. If you're lying, if this is a trick, we'll find a way to end you. Permanently. I understand. And you accept this willingly. No coercion, no duress. Superman met Steve's eyes. I accept it. It's more than I deserve. Strange stepped forward, hands already weaving the complex patterns needed to open a dimensional rift. This will hurt. The transition between realities always does. And once you're there, there's no coming back. No second chances. No redemption arc. Just isolation. I don't want redemption, Superman said quietly. I just want to stop hurting people. The air began to tear. A vertical slash of absolute darkness opening in reality's fabric. Through it, Superman could feel the void beyond, cold, empty, hostile. A place where his powers would mean nothing, where he'd be just a man, alone with his failures. It sounded like paradise. The rift pulsed with darkness that seemed to swallow light itself. Strange's hands trembled with the effort of holding it open, sweat beading on his forehead. The negative zone was not meant to be accessed casually. It was a prison dimension, a place where the laws of physics bent toward entropy and despair. Superman took a step toward it, then another. The pull was magnetic, final, like walking toward an open grave that he'd dug himself. "Wait!" The voice cut through the tension like a knife. Everyone turned. Lois Lane stood in the rooftop doorway, flanked by two SHIELD agents who looked deeply uncomfortable about failing to keep her in protective custody. She wore a blazer over her blouse, her press badge still clipped to her belt. And her expression was the kind of determined fury that had made her one of the best investigative journalists in the country. "Ms. Lane," Fury started, "you should be—" "Save it, Director. This is about me, right? This whole disaster, the fighting, the destroyed buildings, the terror. It all started because he came looking for me." She pointed at Superman, her hand steady despite the fear Superman could hear in her elevated heartbeat. "So I deserved to face him, to understand why." Superman turned slowly, and the moment their eyes met, something broke in his chest. She was so much like his Lois. The same fire, the same refusal to back down, the same absolute conviction that the truth mattered more than safety. But she wasn't his Lois, and she never would be. "You shouldn't be here," Superman said, his voice barely above a whisper. "People keep telling me what I should and shouldn't do today." Lois walked forward, ignoring the Avengers' protective positioning, stopping 10 feet from Superman. "I'm told you called my name when you crashed into our world, that you said I was alive, that you fought gods and heroes just to reach me." Her jaw tightened. "Why?" Superman's throat constricted. How could he explain? How could he make her understand without sounding like the monster he'd become? "In my world," he began slowly, "there was a Lois Lane. She was everything to me. Reporter, truth seeker, the woman who saw past the cape and loved the man underneath. We were going to have a child." His voice cracked. "And then a villain put a bomb in her heart, made me kill her with my own hands through manipulation and fear toxin. I held her while she died, and our unborn child died with her." Lois's expression softened, just slightly. "I'm sorry. I can't imagine that kind of loss. I couldn't handle it. I broke. I decided that the only way to prevent that kind of tragedy was to control everything. Remove free will, eliminate chaos, rule through fear disguised as protection." Superman's hands clenched. "I murdered the villain who killed her. Then I murdered anyone who stood in the way of my new world order. I became a tyrant, and I told myself it was love." The rooftop was silent except for the wind and distant sirens. Lois studied his face, seeing the lines of exhaustion, the weight of sins that would never wash clean. "And when you came here," she said slowly, "you thought you could, what, replace her with me?" Yes, the admission cost him. "I heard your heartbeat and I thought the universe was giving me a second chance, a way to undo my greatest failure. But Dr. Strange showed me the truth. You're not a replacement. You're your own person, living your own life, and I had no right to force myself into it." "No," Lois agreed, her voice firm. "You didn't." She took a step closer, and Steve tensed, ready to intervene. But Lois waved him off. She looked up at Superman, at this broken god in a torn suit, and saw something she recognized from countless interviews with soldiers, with abuse survivors, with people who'd lost everything. She saw someone who needed to hear a truth they'd been running from. "The woman you loved, Lois said carefully. Would she have wanted this? The killing, the tyranny, the running across universes trying to resurrect her ghost. Superman's eyes glistened. No, she would have hated what I became. Then honor her by stopping, not by disappearing into some prison dimension where you can hide from your guilt, but by actually facing what you've done. Strange's concentration wavered, the rift flickering. Ms. Lane, he's too dangerous to remain in this reality. Maybe, Lois conceded. But I've interviewed enough powerful people to know that strength without accountability is just violence waiting to happen. He needs to understand the damage he's caused. Truly understand it. She looked back at Superman. In my experience, isolation doesn't create growth. It creates echo chambers where people justify their worst impulses. Tony spoke up, skepticism clear. So what? We give him a timeout and hope he learns his lesson. He's fought all of us and we barely slowed him down. I'm not suggesting freedom, Lois replied. I'm suggesting consequence. Real consequence. Make him see what his presence here cost. The people hospitalized, the families displaced, the city traumatized. Make him accountable for every second of terror he caused. Superman stared at her, and in that moment, he saw why his Lois had been such a remarkable person. It wasn't just courage. It was the absolute conviction that truth and accountability mattered more than easy answers. She's right, Superman said quietly. Hiding in the negative zone would be escape. I need to face what I've done. And then? Steve asked. And then, Superman continued, meeting the captain's eyes. You decide what justice looks like, not me. I've made enough decisions. The rift to the negative zone collapsed with a sound like thunder in reverse. Strange lowered his hands, exhausted but accepting. The Avengers stood in a loose circle around Superman, weighing Lois Lane's words against the practical reality of containing a being who could punch through dimensions. S.H.I.E.L.D. has a facility, Fury said finally, breaking the silence. The raft. Maximum security, designed for meta-human threats. We retrofit it with red sun lamps, magic dampeners courtesy of Strange, and round-the-clock monitoring. He stays contained until we figure out permanent solutions. Red sun lamps? Tony's eyes narrowed behind his faceplate. You know his weakness? Educated guess based on his physiology, Fury replied. Call it operational intuition. Superman didn't correct him. The irony wasn't lost. They were stumbling toward kryptonite without knowing it existed, building a prison from first principles because he was unprecedented in their world. In his own universe, Batman had known every weakness, catalogued every vulnerability, built contingencies upon contingencies. Here, he was a blank slate, a threat they'd have to learn to contain from scratch. I'll submit to whatever protocols you establish, Superman said. But I want to do something first. Steve's eyes narrowed. What? I want to help repair the damage I caused. Rebuild what I destroyed. Before I'm imprisoned, let me try to be what I should have been from the start. The Avengers exchanged glances. It was a reasonable request, maybe even noble. It was also potentially the perfect escape opportunity. But something in Superman's posture, the defeated slope of his shoulders, the genuine remorse in his eyes, suggested he meant it. Under guard, Steve said firmly. Heavy guard. You make one wrong move. I understand. Over the next 6 hours, Manhattan witnessed something unprecedented. Superman, flanked by Thor and Captain Marvel, worked under S.H.I.E.L.D. supervision to repair the destruction he'd caused. He lifted the collapsed parking garage, supporting it while engineers stabilized the structure. He used heat vision at controlled temperatures to fuse broken steel beams. He flew rescue crews to trapped survivors with a gentleness that seemed at odds with the violence he displayed earlier. News cameras captured everything. The alien in black, working alongside Earth's heroes, rebuilding what he'd broken. Social media exploded with speculation, theories, fear, and surprising pockets of sympathy. The world watched a god perform penance in real time. In the subway tunnels, Superman found Bruce Banner awake and conscious, wrapped in thermal blankets, surrounded by medical personnel. The scientist flinched when he saw the Kryptonian approach. "I'm sorry," Superman said simply. "I pushed you too far, used your anger against you. That was cruel." Bruce studied him through glasses that had somehow survived the Hulk's transformation. "You're not the first to weaponize him. Won't be the last." He paused. "But you're the first to apologize after. That doesn't make it right." "No," Bruce agreed. "But it's a start." Superman helped clear rubble for another 3 hours. His movements were precise now, controlled. Every action calculated to restore rather than destroy. Thor worked beside him, matching strength with strength, and eventually the god of thunder spoke. "In Asgard, we have legends of warriors who lose themselves to rage," Thor said, hoisting a steel girder, "who become monsters in the wake of grief. Some never return to themselves, others find redemption through service and sacrifice." He glanced at Superman. "Thou hast chosen the harder path. I don't deserve the easy one, perhaps. But redemption is not about what one deserves. It is about what one does with the chance given." As the sun set over Manhattan, painting the scarred skyline in shades of orange and gold, Superman completed his last task, repairing the crater where he'd first landed. His hands smoothed concrete, his heat vision fused asphalt, and when he finished, only a faint discoloration marked where reality had torn open to vomit him into this world. Lois Lane watched from behind a police barricade, notepad in hand, documenting everything. When Superman finally stood, brushing dust from his hands, their eyes met across the distance. She nodded once, acknowledgement, not forgiveness, understanding, not absolution. He'd terrorized her, endangered her, projected his dead wife onto her like she was a blank canvas for his grief. But she'd also seen him choose accountability over escape, seen him bleed and break and ultimately surrender. It didn't make them even, but it was something. "Time to go," Steve said, approaching with vibranium restraints designed by Wakandan engineers and enhanced by Strange's magic. "You've done what you could. Now comes the hard part." Superman extended his wrists without hesitation. The restraints clicked into place, glowing with binding runes that made his skin tingle. They wouldn't hold him forever. Nothing could, but they were symbolic. A choice to be bound rather than free. The raft waited in the middle of the bay, a fortress of steel and concrete surrounded by freezing water. A S.H.I.E.L.D. transport hovered nearby, engines thrumming. The Avengers would escort him personally. No chances, no trust, just cold practicality. As Superman walked toward the transport, Tony fell into step beside him. "You know this doesn't fix anything, right? People are still terrified, still hurt." You're still a walking apocalypse we barely survived. I know. But for what it's worth, Tony continued, his voice softer, I've been the guy who thought he knew better than everyone else, who made decisions for the world without asking permission. It nearly destroyed me and everyone I love. So I get it. The temptation, the certainty that you're right even when you're wrong. Superman glanced at him. How did you come back from it? I didn't, Tony said honestly. I just learned to live with what I'd done and try to make different choices going forward. Some days I succeed. Some days I fail spectacularly. That's being human. I'm not human. No, but you're trying to be. That counts for something. They reached the transport. The bay doors opened, revealing an interior lined with red sun lamps that immediately began to sap Superman's strength. He felt it like ice in his veins, power draining, solar reserves depleting. His knees buckled slightly before he caught himself. This was the price. Weakness, vulnerability, humanity. He stepped inside. The transport lifted off, escorted by 3 Quinjets and Carol Danvers in full binary mode. They crossed the bay in silence, Manhattan shrinking behind them until the raft loomed ahead, a black monolith rising from dark water, crowned with towers that bristled with weapons designed to kill gods. Superman was processed like any prisoner. Fingerprints, retinal scan, medical evaluation. The guards were professional but wary, treating him like a bomb that might detonate at any moment. He was stripped of his suit, given gray prison fatigues that hung loose on his frame, already diminished by red sun radiation. His cell was 20 by 20, solid walls on 3 sides, reinforced glass on the 4th. Red sun lamps bathed everything in crimson light. A bed, a toilet, a sink, no windows, no sky, no sunlight that could restore him. It was perfect. Dr. Strange performed the final binding, weaving spells into the cell's structure that would dampen any residual powers. I'll check on you weekly, Strange said. Monitor your psychological state. You'll have access to counseling, though I suspect you'll resist it initially. Why do this? Superman asked. I'm your enemy. Why not just throw me into the negative zone and forget about me? Strange was quiet for a moment. Because Lois Lane was right. Isolation breeds monsters. Accountability breeds growth. And because, despite everything, I saw inside your mind. You were a hero once. Maybe, with time and help, you could remember what that felt like. I don't deserve that chance. Probably not, Strange agreed. But we don't get what we deserve in this universe. We get what we make of the chances we're given. He left, and Superman was alone. The first night was the hardest. Without solar energy coursing through his cells, he felt weak, almost human. His hearing was normal range, unable to track heartbeats across the city. His vision was ordinary, unable to see through walls or across dimensions. He was just a man sitting in a cell with nothing but his thoughts for company. And those thoughts were screaming. He thought about Lois, his Lois, and the child they'd never have. He thought about Batman, bleeding on marble floors, friendship shattered by ideological war. He thought about the heroes he'd killed, the dictator he'd become, the world he'd broken trying to save it. He thought about the other Lois, the one in this universe, who'd faced him with a notepad and demanded accountability, who'd seen a monster and chosen to offer consequence instead of annihilation. In the darkness of his cell, Superman wept. Not the explosive grief that had torn him apart when Lois died, but something quieter, more honest. The tears of a man finally facing what he'd become. Stripped of power, stripped of illusion, with nowhere left to run. "I'm sorry," he whispered to ghosts who couldn't hear. "I'm so sorry." Above, in the guard station, monitors tracked his vitals, heart rate elevated, respiration irregular. No attempts at escape, no violence. Just a man, crying in the dark. Nick Fury watched the feeds, expression unreadable. "Keep him under observation, 24/7. Any changes, I want to know immediately." "Yes, sir. What do we do if he tries to break out?" Fury was quiet for a long moment. "Then we find out if gods can drown." Conclusion. The world moved on as worlds do. Manhattan rebuilt, scars healing slowly but steadily. The Avengers returned to their missions, carrying the weight of a battle that had pushed them to their limits and beyond. Lois Lane wrote the definitive article on Superman's arrival, a piece that balanced fear with nuance, judgment with empathy, journalism at its finest. And in the raft, in a cell bathed in red light, a fallen god learned what it meant to be powerless. Weeks became months. Superman submitted to counseling sessions with S.H.I.E.L.D. psychologists, unpacking decades of trauma, grief, and absolute power that had corrupted absolutely. He spoke about Lois, about the regime, about the moment he'd crossed the line from hero to tyrant. Some days he was cooperative, some days he was catatonic, but slowly, painfully, he began to heal. Thor visited once, bringing Asgardian mead that Superman couldn't drink under red sun radiation. They talked instead, god to god, about the weight of power and the cost of wielding it poorly. "Redemption," Thor said before leaving, "is not a destination. It is a journey without end. Walk it with honor, and perhaps one day thou shalt find peace." Strange maintained his weekly checks, monitoring Superman's magical signature, ensuring the containment held. During one session, he asked a question that hung in the air like smoke. "If we found a way to send you home, would you take it?" Superman considered it. His world, his regime, his throne built on bones. Or this cell, powerless but accountable, facing consequences rather than running from them. "No," he said finally. "My world doesn't need me. It needs to learn to exist without me, and I need to learn to live without power." The answer seemed to satisfy Strange, or perhaps just confirm something the sorcerer already knew. In the end, Superman remained what he'd chosen to become. A prisoner, not of walls or magic, but of his own conscience. A reminder that even gods could fall, and that the truest strength wasn't the ability to break worlds. It was the courage to face what you'd broken and spend forever trying to make amends. Somewhere in Manhattan, Lois Lane received a letter with no return address. Inside, a single sentence in handwriting that seemed carved from regret. "Thank you for showing me that some things are worth more than power, like truth." She filed it with her other sources, a footnote in a story that would echo through both their worlds. The multiverse watched, waited, and wondered if redemption was possible for those who'd forgotten what it meant to be human. Only time would tell. The multiverse never sleeps. More crossovers await,